morning. Thank you for having me. It's always good to be here at the SMART4SEA, Safety for Sea and all the great events. I'll get cracking early because I see the 12 minutes is already up. Try and squeeze it all in. I don't want to see that slide. So, whilst the P&I Club is clearly not making any smart products ourselves per se, we are interested in them, and I'd like to just touch on a couple related to ECDIS that are already in the pipeline, very close to being here, why we think they're good initiatives, and also in the same breath why we have some concerns. The first one is the digital delivery services for automatic ENC updating. They may have more catchy titles. The UKHO call it the Admiralty Digital Delivery Service, or ADS, but your vessel's distributors may have much fancier acronyms. I'm not quite sure yet. Why do we think these are a good idea? I'm going to try and use a couple of case studies as to why we think they're a good idea. Old one, granted, ECDIS wasn't involved, but the idea would be the same. Some of us will be old enough to remember 2002 December, the Tricolor departed Belgium en route to Southampton in the English Channel, about 17 miles north of the French coast. She had a collision with a container vessel and sank, as you can see. She was mostly submerged. A wreck removal was ordered. In the meantime, while they waited for the big operation to commence, patrol vessels were put in place and wreck marks were put in place, temporary wreck marks. It eventually became a T&P notice, but obviously that took some time to come out. So in the meantime, nav warnings were posted. However, in the meantime, she was not only hit by one more, but two more vessels. The wreck had another vessel called the Nicola and another vessel called the Vicky struck the wreck, despite even more buoys being put on, more nav warnings being put out. One of the buoys had a Raycon on it. Still, it took some time for the temporary notice to be put out. Most people will remember this. The CMA CGM lever actually did happen in 2011. However, it has run on quite some time, and the case law has changed the way people approach passage planning. The Admiralty judge at the time put the statement there that you can see, and basically it tied in the concept of seaworthiness around the passage plan. So if your passage plan is not up to scratch, the vessel is considered unseaworthy. The CMA CGM left Jarmen, and this was in 2011, May, and she left the channel for reasons best known to the master, still not entirely clear why, because they were under the impression that the depths outside the channel were adequate for navigation. There was, however, at that time a temporary and preliminary notice in effect that said that the depths outside the channel were probably not particularly great, and this was not marked on the chart at the time. And that's why it related back to passage planning and seaworthiness, because the correction was not applied. How does it usually work in the event of something like the Tricolor? Well, in the good old days, or pretty much the current days, the incident would have occurred. There would have been a navigation warning issued. As I said, that happened in the Tricolor. You're relying on the manual input of the crew then to put something on the ENC or the chart, however you're using it. And then some time later, either a T&P or a full-time correction to the ANC will be issued. To give you an idea of that, this is the current ENC process updating as per the UKHO. I won't go step by step, but you can see basically the hydrographic office receives the data, they have to validate that data, create exchange sets, then that moves on to the distributors. The distributors prepare that and then push it out for the vessel. You can see roughly there, week A, week B is over a week for that whole process. So if the Tricolor went down week A, Monday, the T&P hits the ECDIS or the correction by Wednesday the following week. So you're relying there on the crew paying attention in the middle to those nav warnings and putting those on the charts properly. The digital delivery services is more instant. So clear safety benefits as we see it. The hydrographic office does all of those things, the distributor get it, they collect the data, and then they pass that directly out to the vessels. They don't pass it as a lump sum, they pass it as it comes in. So the vessel can either automatically update the ECDIS or it warns the crew that there is something there to collect and put on the ENC. So it's constant updating. So that wouldn't have been week A, week B, it would have been a day, 2 days. So clear safety benefits when used correctly. Tricolor and arguably the Libra, would they have happened? Those things would have automatically come in and warned the crew. So you'd have had a constantly up-to-date ENC at all times. Crew are made aware, if it automatically updates and they're monitoring the passage, they should be made aware of anything that needs changing on their passage plan, thus improving their hazard awareness. Less points of failure, complex ways of moving A to B, you can automate the backup bridge to the ENC. And for us and Port State, of course, we check in our IG surveys, our navigation services up to date. So we should have less detentions and we should have less defects recorded in those areas because it's automatically happening. Practical issues. I use the term if used correctly. Okay, so if used correctly, we need to rely on the crew understanding how to use it. And they have to be, if it's an automatic update to the ENC, the safety features that are currently already being misused, such as the look ahead and the route monitoring functions, would need to pick up on that change. If they're not using them properly, they won't pick up on that change, and then it's a kind of pointless ordeal. We'd have to look at our procedures and the way that the bridge team works. It should be really approved by the master, so if it's coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning and there's an automatic update, how are we dealing with that? How are we informing the rest of the crew that usually just read the passage plan prior to departure, have the meeting and sign off that they've read it? And then there are changes to both the bridge familiarisation that you have to do on board and potentially the external IMO model course. These things are not overly considered at the moment. The other thing that's coming up, heard a lot about it, the S100 decade for ECDIS. Clear, very clear safety benefits if used properly. We've already had the finalisation of standards. The regulatory framework is in place. I speak to the guys at the UKHO very regularly. They are ready now to start moving to S101, creating the S101 data cells. So they're already there. Click buttons away. They're testing. They are going between hydrographic. They're moving on vessels between the UK and France at the moment to make sure that the transition is seamless between those data sets. So they're there. The guys are there. It's going to be an automated process to move to those data cells as well, so it will not take long. They're a little bit scant on dates, but they're looking by the end of 2024 to start this process, maybe 2025, the final productions of S101 cells. In 2026, they can be introduced on board, so you'll need ECDIS that can read them, potentially if you want to use these benefits by 2026. And by 2029, you will no longer be able to purchase S57 type approved ECDIS. And there'll be this period, and you'll hear this talked about DF, dual fuel ECDIS, basically that reads S57 and S101 cells at the same time. Little bit scant on dates, and a lot of ship owners want to know that, and we're trying to sort of get to the bottom of that with the International Hydrographic Office. They're kind of putting in broad spectrum dates, so it's a little bit shaky on that front at the moment. But again, the technology is charging ahead. Some great things will come of it if used correctly. Passage planning will be easier. Instead of going to 4, 5, 6 publications, you should be able to get it all in one spot. So appraisal should be a lot easier, and that's where we see a lot of failures on board. Practical examples. Any seafarers in the room will understand this. There's your S57. Okay, that's the safety contour. Because the safety contours were taken directly from paper charts at S57 and put onto ENCs, this one here has a safety contour set at 6 meters. There is no 6 meter safety contour, so it goes off at 10. Okay, however, with the S101 data or the 102 data, you can see there it will be graduated. So they've just finished an experiment in the port of Milford Haven at the moment, which you can see online, where they have 1 meter increments for the contour lines. So this will not only make it safer, it will actually improve efficiency, because there are current ports that you might be able to actually get into that you were kind of striking off before because the data wasn't good enough. So there are clear benefits to both efficiency and safety from it. But again, okay, the technology's driving ahead. You speak to the guys at the International Hydrographic Office, they're very excited about this. They're very excited about it, and rightly so. However, you've got guys like me, the jack of all trades, who have to understand cargo, they have to understand navigation, they have to understand ECDIS. They're not technology experts, and they're the guys that are going to be at the coalface, as we say, the guys that are using it. We remember these cat-zog symbols. Not long ago, we put these up in front of some shipping managers, and they said, this one here, we don't have to worry about anything. We don't have to, that's as good as it, that's amazing data right there. But as we all know, it isn't. There are still discrepancies, even in an A1 cat-zog. So ship managers and crews still don't understand and still don't use this. And this is as old as time as far as ECDIS is concerned. It's been around an awful long time. And we still don't get it. And yet we're about to move away from this into something completely different. And the IHO is moving ahead. As I said, they're clicking buttons now to start creating these S101s. The digital delivery service is there, and I have not heard a peep from the IMO or STCW yet as to changing the model course. So the chances are, as I said, by 2026, the crews will have this in front of them, and as yet, and we all know the IMO is fairly glacial in its pace, has not pushed through a new training standard as yet. So we're not really learning from what happened in the past when we rolled out ECDIS really, really quick and nobody knew how to use it properly. We're kind of making the same errors a little bit again. And in the club, we have tried to help out with this. We've created a training tool for our members called the ETA, the ECDIS Training Assessment. It's multiple choice for the crews. It's anonymous for them, so they answer honestly. It's anonymous for our ship owner members, so we don't see the data. It just gives them an idea where they can improve their crew knowledge, and we will be updating this as we roll out S100, and as we roll out the new standards, we'll start to incorporate questions based around that. And I didn't see the slides, so I'm very happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John.